The Renegade. They take our people. They destroy our island. It is not peace that we want. It is that you leave us.
Hey everybody! We're here on the casual couch, but we're dressed like a couple of weirdos. Spiffy weirdos. Spiffy. We're here to talk about a video game, obviously. You guys read the title. And I'm especially going to be talking about it like as a Bioware fan, and this game reminding me so much of early Bioware. So we're like looking at it from that angle especially. So I think that'll be fun. Adam didn't make it all the way through Greedfall.
I just don't get through games these days.
And I think there are reasons he didn't make it all the way through as well that we'll talk about as we go. I, however, have beaten the game, and I've played and beaten every, what I would call modern Bioware game. KOTOR, I would call like the early Bioware, which I have beaten, but I haven't played and beaten Jade Empire, mostly because I can't get my hands on like a system to play it on. And I tried to get it on PC, but it wouldn't run. So when I saw other Bioware fans talking about Greedfall, I was like, hot damn, get me this fucking game. I need it in my life right now. Because as we all know, fucking pour one out for Bioware because EA Games has smashed their face into the ground and does not ever plan to let it back up. Bye, Bioware. So, what's this game about? You star as Desardes? I forget. Desardes? Anyway, you are a lord in essentially France, and you are going to the New World, essentially, which is this island that we are colonizing, straight up colonizing, and taking from the native peoples. There's no two ways about it. It is definitely a direct correlation with the colonization of the United States, basically, in my opinion.
Well,
would you disagree with that?
I would say it would be the colonization of the Caribbean Isles and Central America.
It did remind me a lot of the United States, though, as far as like the look of the place. It wasn't very Caribbean. It was very...
The political machinations and the numbers of peoples involved are more Caribbean.
Anyway, you're a colonizer.
Yes.
You are there.
Except with magic.
Magic colonizer. So you are there on behalf of your like company, family, organization, or whatever. And you're running around the island talking to the various native tribes and talking to the other companies and organizations and trying to curry favor, do quests, and eventually also there's this disease that is spreading to only like you colonizers, and so you have to also eventually deal with that. But that is basically the overall plot. How do we want to do this?
I will start off with an early bad. The mechanics in the game, though they work, at the beginning they're very slow and clunky, and you feel like you're steering a boat, a big ship.
So bad. Now,
you unlock abilities that are like, wow, I can move again. And those are nice, but those don't come till later, and the start of your game should not be steering a giant ship around.
Your character feels so heavy when you're walking around in that first place. Like you're in this palace to begin with, and your character feels like they've got lead weights attached to their feet. And like, that almost turned me off the game right there. I was like, I can't move. What's going on? You can like sprint or whatever, but like, yeah, it doesn't really come up until you're in more open space. I guess jumping off of that, my first bad would also be the battle controls, because they are not intuitive and don't have very much in common with at least other games that I have played, where like X is attack or trigger is attack. Neither of those is attack. So X is dodge, and I think, I forget what attack even is. Eventually you just kind of learn it by feel. But it's not intuitive and doesn't feel right. So it took me a really long time to get into the battle system. I died a lot. Eventually I learned how to shoot gun, and that helped, and I leaned heavily on the shoot gun ability throughout the story. I went with sword and gun person, and he went with sword and magic.
Well, like, there's just so many levels in the game and so few in character customization. You're like, I maxed all the magic. what do I do with all these extra points?
Yeah, there's something else I was going to talk about later, but maybe we should mention a good thing so that people don't think that we, like, hated this game. Because overall, spoilers, overall, I liked it.
So, once you get past an opening of the game and you start getting experience points and leveling up your character, if you pay the remotest amount of attention to your leveling, you feel very quickly can begin to feel very powerful with whatever tree you go with. With magic, I could stun people, and I could be like, oh, there's lots of people. Let's, like, stun 5 of them and, like, just fight a couple. And there's lots of a variety of spells. And if you go with the gun route, you can shoot people from a distance and give a lot of damage.
Even when I was very high level and I completed all the quests, because I'm a completionist like that, and so I was like as high a level as the game will let you be, as you are allowed to be, because there are no more quests to finish, and killing the monsters doesn't get you experience points anymore. When you've reached that point, I still found like the final bosses challenging. You know, it's not like you're ever really in a place where you're so good that nothing is a challenge. There were a couple where I went in and I was like, blam, 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 oh, he's dead. It didn't happen all that often. It still felt like there was a challenge to it.
And we did both play it on normal, didn't we?
I felt like the characters were pretty interesting and enticing. You get some of them right away and then you get some of them later on. They aren't as deep as Bioware characters, by far, but there were a lot more loyalty missions than Bioware usually gives you, which is nice. Like, you had stacks of loyalty missions for them.
Well, in the Bioware games, they do have more character development and interaction on normal story missions, and whereas this one, you really didn't get much character interaction or development except on their story missions.
Yeah, you could have a little in that, like, if I brought, the Naughts are like the sailors, and one of my guys is a Naught, and if I brought him along to talk to the other Naughts, he might have a little special dialogue, or one of the characters you can get is a native, same thing. Take her to the native people and she might have special dialogue. So there's a little bit, but it's not nearly as much as what BioWare would do.
So I'm gonna do a good and a bad. Like, they give you the appearance of choice. Early on, you start speccing your skills and stats, and you can be like, you can be an alchemist and make potions, or you could be a thief and pick locks, or you can just stab people in the face, or there's charisma. Those are like your 4 major ones.
Mm-hmm.
And early on, they give the appearance like, oh, I have choices on how to complete these missions, and if I specialized in one of these tracks, there are different choices, because if you're an alchemist, which is what I went, you can blow up the back wall of a building, and if you're a sneaky lock picker, you can pick the lock of the door instead of blowing up the wall, which seems cool, but like after they do that like the 3rd time and you walk, it's like, oh, here's my wall and I can blow up that wall. The door to pick the lock is right next to it, and oh, behind me over here is this glowing red thing. Oh, that's the mission key that unlocks that door, so I don't need to blow it up or pick it. And you're like, what's the point of these decisions?
Sometimes I used to get the key and then pick the lock anyway.
They talk about it in extra credits, and it's like the illusion of choice, and you're like casting the veil over the player, and you're giving them the illusion of choice, but sometimes the choice has to actually matter.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like, the illusion, the veil is ripped away.
If it's they made it too easy for you to just go, oh, I didn't need to blow up that wall. The key's right the fuck there. In the next room with one guy you can shoot in the face. Oh no. The mechanics seem really promising, but sometimes they let you down. It's still fun though. It's still fun. I also really liked the missions. I never felt in this game like I was on a fetch quest. Greedfall somehow managed to have quests. Significantly less of them than a Bioware game like Inquisition. But it managed to have quests that were varied and interesting, and I never felt like, oh, another one of these drudging around. Like, I was engaged the whole time doing these various quests for people.
Like, it is a good game, and I did enjoy it. I'm just at a point in my life where I've played so many games and read so many books and so many stories that it is difficult for one to engage me and keep me.
It was very reminiscent of, say, Dragon Age Origins in as far as, like, you do have choices where you go for the story, but ultimately, like, all of those choices kind of come together to lead you to the same place. So it's not open world, precisely. There are big maps for you to explore, but I definitely wouldn't call it open world. While at first I was like, because there's many native tribes that you interact with, like at least 5 that you interact with, do things for help or hinder. And at first you look at your screen that talks about your relationships with all of the different factions, and it just says natives. It's like one faction. And yes, that friendliness meter does go up as 1. But each of the tribes does have a distinct personality, and you have to befriend them individually, and, like, if you're not friends with that particular chief or whatever, then your negotiations won't go as well. Like, by the end, I was really close friends with a couple of them. Like, Dunkus, he's my man. A quest would be like, convince Dunkus to do this, and I'd go over there and I'd be like, hey! And he'd be like, hey! And he'd be like, here's the thing you needed, and, you know. I liked that they made it individual enough that you could form a relationship with each of the tribes.
They do have distinct tribes. I guess this gets me a little bit to the part that was railroaded, is I enjoyed the tribes and enjoyed meeting the different tribes, and they have relations between the tribes, and I read and understood them, but despite that I couldn't change the quest lines. Like, I couldn't interact with their personalities. I was just forced to go along. And that sounds very generic, but I'm trying not to give plot points away in it.
One major thing with this game is it will make it seem like there are multiple ways to solve a large plot point, but in reality there's only one way, and if you try any of the other ways, that will not work, and you'll end up having to go with the one way that continued to happen throughout the game. There were a couple of times where I was able to skip a step in a quest that was longer because of the relationships that I had. Be like, I'm not going to talk to so-and-so, I'm just going to go straight and talk to my friend over here. And so I was able to skip a step in the questing, which isn't a big choice, but it's something I was able to do, so it was there.
Speaking of quests, they definitely have a really good system for tracking your quests and keeping on top of things and reminding you where you were.
There's a lot of, like, it was never as simple as you thought it was. That's something this story likes to do, where it's like, oh, you think it's this, but actually it's not as simple as you think. It's not as straightforward as you think. Usually I guessed what the not straightforward answer was, but I think it's because it's coming at it from a French perspective. Like, as an American, I'm like, ugh, we are stealing this land from these people. There is no other thing that we are doing. We have shown up on their island, and we are taking their things. But in this one, it definitely tried to have that balance of, like, I'm the good colonizer. Like, I'd be running through a native, you know, campsite, and I'd be like, I'm the good colonizer, you guys! I think a little bit was lost there. I felt like it could have been explored a lot more deeply, but the creators didn't really with this game, and I think it might be because it is coming at it from a different perspective than, like, say, English or American. This isn't really too much of a spoiler because you find it out pretty early, but naturally your character is not all that she seems, and he or she has ties to the island that are pretty easy to predict, although I was a little disappointed that that's what it was. Now, as far as the look of the game, that's something else I wanted to talk about. It is very reminiscent of early Bioware in its look, especially sort of the clunkiness of some of the NPCs, the just like side NPCs that don't even have any dialogue, populating the villages and everything. They don't have anything, and like, you can be in the middle, like a building could be burning down around them and they're still there, scrubbing the floor, and some of the facial animations are really old school and clunky, and again remind me of early Bioware, but the movements in cinematics, like when your characters are moving with each other in an actual cinematic, is really good. It's better than Bioware usually gets it. Bioware still struggles with make human move in human way. And this game did a really good job, especially in some later scenes where, like, in the middle of a cutscene, a character would kneel and reach and take. My character reach out and grab someone's shoulder and you believed that they're grabbing the shoulder, versus in Bioware it's like, I will hover my hand in the vague area of your shoulder, my friend. So that was good, and I hope that they can continue that, because the characters in the cinematics move like people for once. If you couldn't tell, the hats and the dressing up of your character was like my favorite part. I dressed exclusively for spiffiness. I refused to wear a helmet because it didn't go with the look I was going for. So I don't care if my tri-corner hat has lower stats than that helmet. It's spiffy. And my cape is spiffy. And eventually I put on some armor that was slightly lower stats than the best armor I could get. Why? Spiffy.
I'm a little bit torn. This is the first game that has a mechanic that, I shouldn't say the first, but it is the first that I've played thoroughly that has a mechanic that's like, I need to bring a wardrobe around with me where my character goes. Because not only is it spiffy, but different outfits will make others interact with you differently, and you can also put stat buffs on each outfit that, like, I want to blow up walls today. I will put the gem of blowing up walls on my shirt, and this is my blowing up walls shirt, and I get +1 to alchemy because of it.
It was a little inconvenient that you never quite knew exactly when you were going to need these clothes, so all of a sudden you'd be like, oh, I need to infiltrate this church. And I have my priest robes all the way back at my house. I liked that mechanic of you have to dress up as a certain faction to walk around within their area. I thought that was cool and different.
But it gets to a point where you're eventually like, I just have 18 outfits and I'm always carrying them with me. I don't know.
It was a fun mechanic.
It was a fun mechanic, but I think they could definitely do it better.
The cities all kind of looked the same. And they all looked too built up.
The youngest city was only 5 or 10 years old.
Like, all of them look way too built up. Like, they had basements. And there was a lot of reused assets where, you know, I'd wander through one city, I'd wander through them all. Forests were the same. One thing about Bioware that they do pretty well is give you different environments to explore, and because we're only on one island, it looks really the same. They did have a day-night cycle, but I kind of also wish that they had had weather. That would have been cool. The day-night cycle did matter for many quests. Cool in theory, but often just annoying, because you had to wait to do the quest until it was nighttime.
So you have this day-night thing that doesn't actually have an impact, so why do you have it then?
The monsters are more active at night, and the glowing items are easier to see. So now I'm going to talk about a spoiler. So if you do not want that, I will say right now that I really did quite enjoy Greedfall, and I would recommend it for Bioware fans. Go into it knowing that you're dealing with early Bioware. This company is still finding their feet, but I think there's a lot of promise here.
I mean, of their bad things, none of them are as bad as the original Mako.
No. Some people liked the Mako. I don't know why, but some people did. So, let's talk about the ending. I'm not going to spoil, like, too many of the minutia and details, but I am going to talk about, like, why the ending kind of disappointed me. Because there were opportunities that were missed out on, and I don't understand why. The middle of this game felt really solid. Like, the story was ramping up and going towards the climax, and I was like, oh, whoa, this is cool. I like it. This is really setting me up for a really tough choice at the end, or something like that. There was a lot building up toward the ending of the game, especially to do with your cousin, with whom you could choose to have a very good relationship, and I did, and I liked him a lot, and I knew they were going to do something to him, and they did. A lot of wasted potential. First of all, you've got all of these allies that you can call up to help you, but it doesn't feel like it matters. And I don't know what happens if you don't have them. Presumably the monsters, there's just more monsters or something. And then your companions start to, like, peel off and leave you as you're going up the mountain, because they're like, I have to stay here and hold this point. And I feel like maybe if you had all of the factions there, that you could maybe keep your companions or something like that. Or could you maybe assign certain companions to certain things instead of just the game forcing you to drop them all off, so that your main character could go alone to the top of the mountain to meet with your corrupted cousin, who, he gets corrupted, that's all you need to know, but it happens very, very quickly, and I didn't like that, and I felt like it really was not explored very well. It started to be. Like, it seemed like it was going really well, until all of a sudden he was evil. He was like, good, evil. He goes all Darth Vader, join me in the dark side, and you either stab him or join him. stabbing him being the good ending, joining him being the bad ending. You barely get any dialogue. You don't get to talk about this as you're basically his sibling. You were raised together and you have a close relationship through this full game. But you get to the top of the mountain and you're just like, guess I'm gonna stab ya. Really, really disappointing. There could have been so much more explored with it. And instead they went with, you know, which color ending do you want? Kind of a thing. Still worth playing through the game for the rest of it. But holy balls, that ending. Overall, though, I really did enjoy the game, and I do recommend it to Bioware fans. Adam, even though he stopped...
So, if you are a rookie gamer, or like you've got less than, like a decade or less of RPG console gaming, go for it. This is going to be an awesome experience for you. I've got too many decades.
Are you saying that I'm an inexperienced gamer?
I'm trying to give an honest recommendation, and part of the reason I didn't like it is because I've been through similar too many times for me to enjoy it.
Now I'm going to say that that's a feature. Because, again, he's played some Bioware games, but he's not a fanatic. I'm a fanatic. And I think if you're really a fan of playing the games, you like something that's the same. So we're desperate for more Bioware. Still love me, right?
I love you, but I smell.
I mean, that's our relationship. Alright, guys, that was our thoughts on Greedfall. Go play it.
It's a good game. You should play it.
Go play it. So, you guys know that I have a lot of videos here on this channel. Some of them are related to video games, but most of them are related to bookish things and writing. I do have a Patreon where you can support me monetarily, plus get access to videos that are not seen here on the regular channel. Like Adam and I will have a review of Star Wars over there that we did together, so that's exciting.
Will you?
We will.
Oh, we will.
Shoot, what's my outro?
Goodbye.
Not yet. I post new videos Mondays and Fridays, and all the links to my social media are in the doobly-doo for ease of your clicking. Now, bye!
Bye! You did it backwards.
I did. For a second I panicked because I forgot which way we were going. Hello, new month, new patrons. Who have we got on our patron list this month? We have Lennox, Adrienne, Amanda, Irene, Jenny, Jesper, Kim, Lisa, Ryakio, Sabby Panda, Savvy, and Scribbling Cat. I'm sure I mispronounced at least one of those names. If you would like to have your name professionally mispronounced, then you can join my amazing patrons over on Patreon.